Welcome to Faith Written Forward. In our first episode, Valerie shared her story of her book, Finding Hope When Storms Don't Cease. It began with a spiritual dream, a dark storm, an evil presence, and one desperate cry, Jesus. That dream was not just fear in the night. It became a warning that storms were coming. In this episode, we look at one of those storms, the pain of abuse in marriage, the spiritual battle of confusion and control, and the courage it took for Valerie to protect her sons while still clinging to her faith.
I realized what faith was, that hers was genuine. She wrote in her Bible. She dated things in her Bible. Her Bible was her legacy, her story.
I think a lot of people sit in church as well, and I think that they feel disqualified because a lot of these topics are not discussed.
Yes.
We always have a lot of self-doubt. You got to step out in faith. You got to really just trust God, and give it to God.
That even in those hard times, God's going to be there for me.
Valerie, would you share what life was like in that marriage and help our viewers understand the emotional and spiritual weight of living in fear?
Yeah, and first off, I want to say that, when I really had no intentions of writing anything about this marriage in my book,
Yeah.
and, I didn't talk a lot about it to people. We had a business together, people didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But when I sat down to write, I just started praying and I said, God, you tell me what's right, you lead me.
Yeah.
Don't let me write anything I'm not supposed to,
Right.
but make sure I write what I am supposed to,
Right.
what you want on these pages.
Absolutely.
And this stuff just all started pouring out on the pages.
Yeah.
And there was times where I'm like, God, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I really didn't want to hurt the family in any way. And,
Yes.
he has passed, but still, it affects the family. And
Right.
so, it was hard because I loved him very much.
Yeah.
And I know he loved me very much.
Yeah.
But he didn't know how to be a good husband.
Yeah.
And I saw the warning signs in the beginning. I even had his family, my family, trying to tell me,
Yeah.
because they were seeing things and like, are you sure about this? And you just, I saw him as somebody who loved God immensely
Mm-hmm.
and had more faith than anybody I'd ever met.
Wow.
And that was something that I felt like I was lacking, was spiritual leadership in our family.
Yeah.
And so I was drawn to him because of that.
Yeah.
So I was willing to overlook those warning signs.
Right.
And there was times where he was very, very controlling, very manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
But there was that macho side of him that,
Yeah.
kind of draws us girls in
Yeah.
sometimes. We want that
Yeah.
guy who will stand up and protect us.
Right.
And so that was kind of what was happening in the early days that kind of drew me in. But it did become and it was never physical.
Mm-hmm.
It was all emotional.
Yeah.
And so when I started seeing that how much it was affecting the boys, then, and I think we'll talk more about that as we go
Yeah.
along.
I think too, we don't set out to hurt anybody,
No.
when we write. But I think as Christian women, when we sit down to write, we pour out our hearts, to God, and He takes your pen and He does what
Yes.
He wants.
Right.
to
And I'll
do.
tell you, there's been a lot of women who I've been very surprised because I really thought that the book would draw out more about the drug addictions and things like
Right.
that, which it has, of course.
Right.
But it's also brought a lot of women to me saying, I'm going through this too.
Completely understand.
And,
Yes.
that I've just been amazed at what God is doing through
Mhm.
that portion of the story.
Yeah.
And I tried to be very careful of protecting the family. There's no
Right.
names.
Right.
It had been 10, 12 years since we were
Right.
married. So,
Right. Yeah, I think
That is
that's
so
what we
hard.
do, as mothers or even as wives. You don't want to hurt anyone,
Right.
but you really feel like you need to do God's will,
Yeah.
And that's what I did as well. I felt like, I got to do God's will, and I'm just not sure that this is the right thing.
Yeah.
But it's God's will, and that pull and tug, just like, in the first episode, we talked about your dream and the pull and the tug that you had. It's the same kind of
Right.
thing. You feel it and When did you begin to realize that what was happening in your marriage was not just conflict, but it was abuse?
There was different times where he would do things like I was starting to have some arrhythmia problems,
Yeah.
and I had told him that I needed to go to the doctor, and he looked at me one day, pulled me into the office, and he just looked straight in my face and he says, "Don't you dare go to the doctor until you get some insurance. Do not bury me in debt."
What?
And it's like, holy cow, what did I just marry into?
My.
And there was just so many different things that it was so much anger. Again, it wasn't physical,
Right.
but just the constant cutting you down and making you feel small and making you feel like you could not do anything right,
Right.
and it just,
And knowing that you're a strong woman anyway,
yeah,
and you know
yeah.
that within yourself, you're like,
Yeah.
why am I standing in this when I know that I'm a strong, faith-filled woman? Why am I letting this control me? Did you feel that way?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
So I know, being a Christian, how did that affect, the way you wrestled? Because I'm sure that you were like, do I stay? Do I
Right.
go? What about my kids?
Yeah.
I'm sure that, do I leave him, or, do I forgive?
Right.
All those things had to be just like popping up in your head.
For years.
Yeah?
For years. And
Tell me about
it
that.
was very early on that things were not going so well.
Yeah.
But I had already been divorced once.
Yeah.
And this relationship kind of picked up right after that one. And so there wasn't any downtime. There wasn't any healing.
Right.
And I just jumped right into this relationship, and looking back, it's like, wow, you got to give yourself a year.
Yeah.
But
hoping instead of healing.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
huge. Yeah.
But it was a constant battle for almost 10 years. And we were married 8. And I constantly battled the fact that I am a Christian woman. I do not want to be branded again as a divorced woman.
Yes.
I especially didn't want to be branded as the woman who divorced him.
Right.
And so I stayed longer than we should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that affect your sons, though?
When I started realizing, kind of watching the patterns,
Yeah.
their dad and I had every other weekend arrangements. And so on the weekends is when he would drink a lot.
Yeah.
And he would get very, very mean when he would drink.
Yeah.
And so I ended up making it work so that their dad would have them on like the Sunday nights, and, tried to
Bypass the time?
Yes. I tried to bypass those nights and protect them from that. And most of the time, he kind of stayed to himself. He was over watching his TV. I watched my TV. I mean, it was a divided house.
Wow.
But there was one night that the boys were already in bed, and he had been drinking, and he started attacking my family, calling one of my, family names, and just going on and criticizing. And all of a sudden I start hearing a whimper in the bedroom.
Oh.
And I thought David had a bad dream.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in and console him, and I'm like, "What's wrong, Davy?" And we called him Davy back then.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I don't like the way he's talking to you. I don't like the way he's treating you."
Wow.
And, I'm thinking they're asleep. They're not hearing any of this, and they are.
Yeah.
So, I've asked the boys, now that they're older, because that, they've gotten into the alcohol and things, and my husband at that time was an alcoholic from what I considered.
Yeah.
And I asked him if that played a role in what they're doing. And they said no, that it was just the kids that they started hanging around with, and the influence of, just our community at that time. But
I'm sure that really.
you still just don't know how much it really affected.
Yeah. Okay. I've got, this is my aha moment.
I think that was actually the night that I decided that, okay, their dad's going to have to keep them. And, on Friday nights, we'd make it movie night. So he would kind of go off and do his thing, and the boys and I would watch movies and try to keep it as calm that night as we could.
Did he treat the boys okay? pretty much? Or?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
There were some few episodes with my oldest son, matter of fact, to the point that he refused to go to his funeral. And it just, he terrified him.
So he had some deep hurt.
There was
with
a couple
that.
times he terrified him. And
Really?
Austin was a good kid.
Yeah.
He was a really good kid.
Yeah.
But
Very quiet.
yes.
Yeah.
He was, but early on in the marriage, he was trying to set boundaries and to show them who was boss and how it was going to be done. And it was just too harsh for what his little soul could handle.
Right. How old were
Yeah.
they at this time?
David was 5 and Austin would have been 7.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
that's something big for new little
Yeah.
hearts, you know, especially walking through what you've already had experienced, you know, I'm sure. How did prayer help you when you know, because I know you felt trapped
I did.
between loving someone and then you felt like you needed to protect the kids but I still love this guy, even though he's not the man I need him to be.
Yeah.
What do I do?
I did a lot of taking walks by myself out in because we lived out in the country.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I would take real long walks by myself. And that was really kind of my saving grace through the marriage.
Yeah.
And it truly was just a conversation with God the whole way.
Wow.
And it's like, God, you know, I don't know what to do here. And I tried everything. We tried counseling. I tried, you know, being the submissive wife and just doing everything I
fly
could
under
to
the radar
appease.
kind of thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
keep the peace. But then, you know, when that wasn't working, then I became more the angry wife, you know,
Yeah.
and retaliating back and trying to stand up to him.
Yeah.
And that wasn't working either. I
Yeah.
mean, it just
That probably didn't go over very
nothing.
well.
No,
Yeah.
nothing was working.
What was the hardest part, you know, to choose to step away?
Well, it was 8 years that we had been married,
Yeah.
and I truly just had come to the place where I didn't know who I was anymore. I was just feeling like I was going through the motions.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was nights where I would stay at work and work at the office till 8 o'clock at night when the weekends I didn't have the boys,
Yeah.
just to avoid going home and having to deal with the alcohol.
Yeah.
But there was a night that the boys came home. They had been with their dad. They had been to soccer practice or something. And I'm sitting on the couch and I was working on some book work. And at this point in time, we had built our home, and he decided to build his own little den off to the side. That's where he lived. There was never come and sit in the living room, watch
So
movies with
literally
us.
house divided.
It absolutely was, yeah. Matter of fact, he wanted to build a nice big patio, porch on the front of the house. He wanted it full length, and we did that. He ended up sitting in the back on the small pad to avoid
Really?
me. Yeah. So it was, you know, and if I'd go out there and try to sit with them, then he wouldn't talk to me. So, you know, it was just ongoing all the time.
Emotions.
Yeah.
Like,
So the one night that the boys came home, I'm doing the book work, and they come walking in the kitchen. They're just a bebopping, and, you know, they're all happy. And he comes from the back room and just barrels out to the kitchen. And he was a very large man, very tall man, very deep voice.
yeah.
And he's pointing in their face, you know, and yelling at them about something. I don't even remember what it was, but something that didn't meet his expectations. And I mean, they had just walked in the door. They hadn't even put their bags down yet or anything. And he's doing this, and I'm sitting there watching this, and it's like, this is just like a rerun of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes back to his room, and the boys come walking through, and they just got this sheepish look on their face. And they both look over at me, and Austin just kind of looking down at the floor. David, he gives me kind of a half grin because it's like, you know, hi, Mom, you know, and they start to walk up to the stairs to go up to their rooms. And I'm watching them as they're going up. And the rage on their faces and just clenching their jaws.
Yeah.
And they were about, I want to say, 10, 11. Austin was probably around 13.
Yeah.
So he's getting into his preteen years.
Those are hard years anyway.
Yes. The hormones are starting to kick in.
Yeah.
And I thought right then, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
We can't do this anymore, because what went through my mind was that someday one of those boys is going to snap, that he's going to hit them at the wrong point.
Right.
And you hear all these horror stories in these movies of the stepsons
Yeah.
they don't want to take it anymore.
Right.
And somebody ends up
And
dead.
seeing their mama,
Yeah.
being treated that way as
Yeah.
well, I'm sure built up a new rage
Right.
within them that
Right.
they didn't want to share with you because they didn't want to hurt you.
Right.
You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
My gracious. So the pain in having that pain in your household, do you think that is what kind of pushed the boys toward the struggle of rebellion and addiction, or do you feel like not?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it affected them in some way. I mean, how do you live in that kind of environment and not,
And
even
not
though
be
I tried
affected?
to
Yeah.
protect them as much as I
Sure.
could, they're still seeing what's going on. They're still feeling what's in our
Yeah,
house.
for sure.
There's no peace in our house whatsoever.
Right.
And but I also think there was just a lot of influence in the community with the drugs at the time, and
Yeah. And that age group.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All the things. I love the word boundaries. But what did God teach you about those boundaries and, having courage?
Boundaries can be very healthy.
Yes.
And when I did finally walk away, I didn't realize until after that
Yeah.
how low I had gotten, and it had affected my health in that respect too.
Wow.
So, knowing that I've made the step, this is, I'm done. We're not going to do
Right.
this anymore.
Right.
I'm not going to put my kids through it anymore. I'm not doing it for me anymore.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't healthy for him either,
For
because
sure.
there was no communication. There was
Right.
no, even though we loved each other intensely, we didn't, we just, there was no relationship.
Right. Right.
Back to kind of that struggle of, but I'm a Christian woman and what do I do here? Well,
Right.
God doesn't expect you to be a doormat.
Exactly.
And it does take
Exactly.
two. I think we talked about that earlier. It
Yeah,
takes two.
absolutely. Yeah.
And, we went through that counseling.
Yeah, and I think you want to
process.
pull yourself back from that a little bit,
Yeah.
because you're like, well, I thought you were, you take faith and
Yeah.
trust in God seriously,
Right.
but you're not taking me seriously. And God tells you as my husband that you're supposed to love me
Mhm.
like God loves the church.
Right.
And, that's big.
Yeah.
That's a big responsibility for a man.
Sure
I mean,
is.
and it has to be that way because was God's intent.
Yep.
So, I'm sure that struggle was hard because you thought, well, I'm under the impression that you are a Christian man, but a Christian man does not act this way. A Christian man does not treat his wife this way. A Christian man does not treat his stepchildren this way.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that struggle was deep. But on page 29 of your book, you wrote, I didn't believe God expected me to stay in abusive relationship. And I think we just touched on that.
Okay.
So those boundaries were huge for you to step out of.
Well, and
you know?
the thing that we did the counseling and everything, but I left 3 different times.
Did you?
Yeah. So I would leave for a while. I went and stayed with my parents for a while. And every time, it was his house.
Yeah.
So I went the original house. Okay.
Right.
So every time, he would get mad and he would kick us out.
Yeah.
Me and my boys.
Yeah.
It was his home. So we would have to pack up and leave. And after the second time of doing that, it's like, I'm not doing this anymore. We're gonna, when we had decided to go back together that last time,
Yeah.
we'd started talking about this house and everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm not going to lose the house. I'll pay for the house.
Mhm.
And so I did. I started paying for the house. And that way, if something happened, then he was able to go back to his house because he kept that. But anyways,
What about the times that, when you would walk out and you would leave, you've done that 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Was there something in you did you just love him so much that you wanted to just go back and try again? Or why did you keep going back?
Different. He'd become
Okay.
very different.
Yeah.
And we would get back together, and then it was like for a year,
Yeah.
he would be great.
Yes.
He'd really be doing what it
Mhm.
took for a marriage, and
Yeah.
you've each got your part to play. But it was like within 1 year, it was like flipping that switch,
Mhm.
and you go right back
Yeah.
to being that person. And that third time, it's like, I'm not
Can't
gonna
do this anymore. So you went ahead and left.
Yeah.
And then I think you moved out and you took the boys, started your life over again, got you a little place.
Yes.
And then not too long after that, your husband passed.
Yes.
So
yeah.
after you divorced, your husband passed. So shortly before he passed, you had another dream. Can you tell us about that and how like God prepared you for that inner struggle?
Yeah. So when I found out that because we found out very shortly after the divorce, and I remember the day that I found out, I'm sitting in the parking lot and I'm going, God, why? Why didn't you tell me before the divorce? Because I wouldn't have left.
Yeah.
Because I would have stayed and take
That's
care of
probably
him.
why, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And so once he did start getting really sick, I ended up praying that God would allow me, that if he ended up in the hospital or anything, that he would allow me to go back and take care of him.
Wow.
And I get a
Can
phone
I just
call.
say, what a warrior? That
Get
takes
a
a
phone
strong
call
woman.
from his one of the guys that was working for him originally.
Yeah.
He was his roommate, and he said, Valerie, he says, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I've called the family. I've tried to tell him there's something really wrong. I think he needs to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Can you please just come out? I know you still love him. Will you just come out and check on him? So I did. We ended up getting him in the hospital. I took care of him for a little while, and then we don't know if it was the medication or the disease itself was making him have hallucinations. And
oh wow, and that changes personalities.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
there was all kinds of crazy things going on, and
Yeah.
he called the police on me because I was giving him his IV shots. He wouldn't let anybody else do it. He wouldn't let the nurses do it. Valerie had to do it.
Yeah.
So then when I was doing it, he's like, "You're probably poisoning me." Well, I'm thinking he's kidding.
Right.
He wasn't kidding. He really thought that I was trying to kill him. So at that point in time, I had to step away, and he called the family and said, "Look, I can't.
Yeah.
That's
It's time
that's
for you
putting
to
me-
step up
yeah.
because I can't be in that responsibility. And
Yeah.
he kept calling the police,
Yeah, well, he called the
saying
police
that
that
to
time.
them.
Yeah.
Oh my gracious.
But there was other things that were happening, and then he did end up back in he actually ended up in a coma.
Oh my.
And so God had honored that, that it gave us some of that time that we needed before he passed. But then what happened right after that was there was a period of time where he was doing fine. His family was taking care of him. And I had another dream. And the dream was we were at some kind of a gathering or something, and he was there. And I came. And he walked around, took me around to each one of his family. And he said, "No, it's okay. I want her here."
Oh wow.
And I woke up and I ended up texting his sister, and I said, "Is he doing okay? I just had this dream." And she says, "Well, he's just had another bout of something. They'd had him at the hospital, but he's back home." And she says, I know you really care about him."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, just checking on him. I don't know why the dream."
Yeah.
It was like 2 days later he died unexpectedly. They didn't
Oh wow.
wasn't expecting it. And to me, the dream meant, because I had been wrestling with the fact of what happens when he passes away. Do I go to the funeral? It was
Confirmation.
God telling me that it's okay that I go to this funeral.
Yeah.
And so I had, talked to the family and asked a couple of them, is it okay if I be there? So I was able to go to the funeral. But it was just another thing of God
Showing you in another
confirming
dream.
things. Yeah.
It amazes me how he comes to you in those
Yeah.
dreams. It's something else. If you had to say to a person, not just a woman, but even a man that feels afraid or isolated, that's kind of in the same situation that you've walked through, maybe they're confused or they feel like they're maybe in a harmful situation, what does Jesus want them to know?
Well, one thing I want to say is I don't condone divorce. It's a very hard thing.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's not what God intended.
Right.
And he wants us to make those marriages work. And I think that you got to do everything that you can to make it work, but you got to have both parties willing to do that. And for us, it was just doing everything I could, going to the counseling, sitting down and having those hard conversations with each other.
Right.
Doing your best. Peace rules. I will tell you, peace rules when it comes in a marriage.
Yes.
And you need to find that peace.
Yes.
And if you can't, and you're just there's absolutely no excuse for abuse. That
Yeah.
there's absolutely none.
100%.
But
Any kind.
if you feel like God is telling you that you have that release,
Yeah.
then you do.
Yeah.
You need to trust that.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you the difference in my life now.
Yeah.
I'm a totally different person, I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah.
And peace rules in my life, and
Yeah.
there's joy, and
Amen.
God has brought an amazing man into my life. Somebody I had known for 25 years.
Wow.
Never would have expected to marry.
Wow.
And matter of fact, you'll have to ask him about this story
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because
We're
I
gonna
did a
talk
lot
about
of
that
this
one.
in the first 3 years. But then finally my eyes were open that, this is who I have for you. And
Yeah.
it's been amazing. So,
It's something to me that when God sends you a partner like
Yeah.
that, and the peace that you were talking about,
Yeah.
it's like a tornado, and the tornado's flying around, but the eye of the storm is so peaceful
Yeah.
that you really don't notice
Right.
what's going on all around you.
That's a
that
really good way
you
to say
feel like that center point of that storm is where you were meant to be. That's when you know
Yeah.
it's God-given. That's when you know that relationship was gifted to you.
Right.
It's when you find peace in the eye of that storm.
Yeah.
Valerie, would you pray over the women that are watching today?
Absolutely.
I would appreciate that. I'm sure they will too.
Lord, I just want to come to you and ask that you be with each and every person who's out there that is struggling with this particular issue. Abuse is just not anything that you would want in a marriage of any kind. And whether that is verbal, emotional, whether it's physical, you are a God of love, and we are supposed to love each other. And we both have the responsibilities of certain things that we're supposed to do. We are supposed to respect our husband. Our husbands are supposed to love us.
Yes.
And it's two ways. It takes two of us. So I just ask God that you guide and direct, that you protect, and that you lead, and that you guide, and you help them have the discernment and the understanding of the steps that they need to take. I know some people are in very dangerous situations, and I pray that you will provide them with the people to come around them and help them to know what is the next step, what can I do safely. And Lord, just give them back their freedom.
Yes.
But also, Lord, if it's somebody that just needs to stop pointing fingers at the spouse and start looking internally at themselves, help their eyes be open to the truth of that.
Yes.
Help them be able to receive that. And Lord, we just ask that each person embraces exactly what you need for them individually, because everybody's story is different. But Lord, thank you for your love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Valerie, thank you for sharing such an inspirational part of your story.
Thank you.
From author Valerie Juillerat comes Finding Hope When Storms Don't Cease, an inspiring true story of extraordinary faith through unimaginable pain. Through teen addictions, abuse, spiritual battles, and a mother's relentless prayers, Valerie reveals how Christ brings hope, healing, and redemption even when the storm keeps raging. Discover the book that reminds every wounded heart God is still working in the storm. Purchase Finding Hope When Storms Don't Cease at faithwrittenforward.tv.
Every Christian book begins with a calling, a message God placed on someone's heart. At the International Christian Book Awards, we honor and elevate Christian authors who are using story, testimony, and truth to impact lives. Whether your book is already published, still being written, or only beginning as a dream, you're invited to the Author Elevate Conference and Gala September 12th. Submit your book for award consideration, connect with other faith-filled writers, and be encouraged to carry your message forward. Visit internationalchristianbookawards.com.
Never forget that even when the storm is inside the home, Jesus sees, Jesus cares, and Jesus leads his people toward hope. We'll see you next week on Faith Written Forward.
Thank you for watching Faith Written Forward, where we carry God's message through story. This program is possible through viewers like you and our faithful partners. Your support helps us to share the stories of Christian authors and the messages of hope and encouragement to expand our reach to lives across the world. Become a partner or sponsor today at faithwrittenforward.tv. We thank you. Until next time, keep moving forward in faith.